Streets and Scholars. Thanks for tapping in with Alex Alonso and FG for another banger. What's going on, FG? They've been talking about you.
What's going on, man? They hit show have them. They going.
They talking about you online, man.
Yeah, man. I told them about that. They gonna get enough mess with me though, man.
And we'll get into it, but just to let the people know who don't know, you got sentenced to prison for 120 months. You produced some paperwork in December on your case. I mean, how does it feel when people are saying your paperwork is fake?
You know what? To me, it don't bother me at all. You know what I mean? To be honest with you, because I know 100% what it is. So, there's one thing about this internet. They showed me that people gonna try to jump out there and say what they gonna say. But like I said, I didn't mind it at all. But when they brought your name into it, I had a problem with it.
Yeah, man, because I'm not even the one that even introduced the paperwork. I mean, there were at least, 2 or 3 other platforms talking about the paperwork. And in VladTV's latest Mob James interview, he doesn't even mention, they don't even want to mention Whack 100.
Right.
Are they scared to mention this dude's name?
You know what? I believe Mob James definitely is, you know what I mean? No doubt. But at the same time, it was very irresponsible on Vlad's part to, put that out there like he did.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let's get into a few things here. Still no update on YNW Melly's trial, which is crazy. We're in August. This trial was supposed to happen a couple months ago. And I'm starting to think that maybe the case is weaker than we think it is, because when YNW Melly requested for a speedy trial that you mentioned last episode, that would suggest that he's ready to go. And then they're doing a stall tactic by saying, oh, we're going to try to put the death penalty on the table. Why are they just saying, all right, let's go?
No doubt. I'm wondering the same thing. And he was supposed to be granted that speedy trial. But like you said, they putting delays on it. And so I'm trying to see what kind of tactics are they coming with,
Yeah. And I just don't, I'm starting to have less and less confidence in the legitimacy of this case the longer it takes for the state of Florida to go to trial against YNW Melly and his co-defendant. What is it, YNW Borden?
Yeah, Bortland. Yeah.
Bortland, yeah. So so far no updates on this, man.
Yeah, they trying to stall it off, but like you say, his lawyer and them ready, more time, for them to get the defenses together as well. But at the same time, I'm just hoping they don't do him like they just did Young Thug. They just added some new charges on Young Thug.
Oh, so, yeah.
I mean, I think it's they just trying to make something stick, but they just hit him with a couple more charges, man. So they trying to bury that kid too.
Man, that is crazy. They just they further indicted Young Thug, man.
Man, after they already had a rack of charges on him. I mean, you know what I mean? So they trying what they trying, because they don't throw it all up against the wall and see what stick.
Well, I'm not a big fan of Georgia's RICO. I don't even think it's, when people hear RICO, they automatically think feds.
Right.
But this is not a fed case. And Georgia is brand new. I don't want to say brand new, but it's something that they haven't been doing for a long time, is bringing these RICO cases. And I have firsthand knowledge of a brother named Mad Ronald, who's from the West Side Rolling 20s, Los Angeles, who is currently sitting in a Georgia jail awaiting a RICO indictment that he got hit with almost 2 years ago. He's just sitting in the county jail, and we're all confused. Like, why the heck did Georgia come all the way to L.A. to scoop up Mad Ronald to charge him with a RICO? He's included in a RICO with like 30 other people.
Damn.
Everybody's from Atlanta.
Right.
There might be one. There's one L.A. dude on the indictment, but they got him as the leader of a whole bunch of dudes in Atlanta, and he don't even know any of these guys.
Oh, I'm sure a whole bunch of them don't know each other. But, man, for some reason, when they come down with these RICOs, like I said, they try to scoop them up and try to pin them, man, and then especially for an L.A. guy being out there in Georgia, they probably really going to try to stick it to him.
Yeah, I was reading over the indictment, and the stuff they got against Mad Ronald is really weak. They even called him the leader. They called him a founder. And this is a brother that he washes and cleans carpets in Los Angeles. He does gang intervention. He ain't been to prison in like a decade. And they just reading over this his RICO case, I'm starting to think that maybe a lot of these RICO cases are just a lot of speculative information in it, and even reading Young Thugs, there's a lot of shit in there. I'm like, what? This sound crazy.
No doubt, no doubt. But even on Matt Ronald's situation, man, the problem with that is because he's in Georgia. When he goes to trial, if he goes to trial, these are not a jury of his peers. They painting a picture that you came from L.A. You're an ex-gang member. You maybe brought drugs or tried to entice people in our state. Sometimes that hurts when you're in another state because the jurors look at you the same way. The picture they painting, it's like they don't have no sympathy for you because you from California or because you from another state. So, I hope everything work out for him down there, man.
Yeah, man. I actually tried to get, I didn't try, I actually kind of pulled it off. I got the New Yorker magazine, a national magazine, to do an article. They wanted to write an article about Young Thug and his RICO case. Mm-hmm. These writers reached out to me and said, hey, Alex, we want to get your opinion on this whole thing. We know you work on a lot of cases. I said, I'll assist you, but you got to cover Matt Ronald's case. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm not going to sit here and talk about Young Thug unless you talk about Matt Ronald.
No doubt.
So he ended up doing his research. He hit me back, and he actually spent half the article on Matt Ronald and half the article on Young Thug.
Oh, that's what's up.
And it really brought some light to it because we don't even know why Matt Ronald's still in custody. It's going on 20 months now. It's going on 2 years. They haven't really showed him any evidence. They haven't even said what he actually did. His charge is 1 count RICO. That's it. And he thinks it's some phone calls that he had with some dudes from Atlanta that he met on social media. And, he does a lot of interviews, so he's looked at as an OG. Mm-hmm. And when the youngsters hit him up on Instagram, he's very open to communicating.
Right.
And maybe his mistake was being too friendly to strangers.
Right.
Because these phone calls are all being recorded, and he got pulled into their shit.
Yeah, and I've seen it happen, man. And I tell people nowadays, I would like to go hang out with, a lot of homies I did fair time with, or a lot of homies that's out there balling and say, hey, man, F, come to here with us, nigga, fly over here with us, do this. But, hey, homie, I don't know what you really got going in my mind, you know what I mean? And I can't get caught up on your indictment just hanging out with you, and sometimes that happened. So in the case of Matt Ronald, man, like I said, I'm just hoping, and that was really cool to do, put that out there publicly in his article, because you would be surprised sometimes we put something out publicly, it makes other people go take a look at it. Yeah. You know what I mean? If somebody could go take a look at it and say, you know what, we didn't know about this dude, but he is over here sitting on some frivolous shit. You know what I mean? Or some minute shit that they making a big issue out of. You know what I mean?
Well, I think that if this case for Matt Ronald at least goes to court, goes to trial, there's very little evidence that he's involved in any sort of conspiracy. But it must be crazy to try to fight a case when you live in LA and they got you in Georgia. You got no ties in Georgia. You don't know anyone in Georgia. You have no family there. And they picked him up. He was standing or walking to his apartment right over here on in the neighborhood, and he said in the article when they interviewed him, he said that he was with his daughter, and he said from out of nowhere, police were coming from all angles, LAPD, Georgia Bureau of Investigations, FBI, and he thought it was his daughter. He looked at his daughter and said, what the hell's going on?
Yeah.
What you do? And they're like, no, we're here for you, Matt Ronald. And that's how he got scooped up, and then they sent him to Georgia, and he's been sitting in there ever since. Pretty much on no evidence.
Wow. Well, I hope everything work out for him for sure.
And I'm going to encourage him to sue the state of Georgia and sue the GBI, sue all those people that are, because I really think that even in Young Thug's case, parts of his RICO indictment read frivolously. I'm not saying that these dudes didn't do nothing. I'm saying if they did something, charge them with that. But they're trying to do this thing where they investigate you for the last decade, and then they investigate you with a whole bunch of other people, and they just sweep you up. And if this guy did that, everyone in the RICO is responsible for what this guy did. And if this guy did that, then everybody else is responsible. Yeah. And it's a sucker way to try to prosecute people.
Yeah, that definitely ain't cool, man.
All right. What else here? Oh, when we spoke on Boxer getting out, remember they said they had what's his name, Governor Gavin Newsom said he was turning it over to a full panel of the Board of Paroles
for review. Yeah.
Someone hit me up and said that I guess I said the CDC. I keep on referring to the board as the CDC, but someone hit me up and said that the Board of Paroles is separate from the CDC. The Board of Paroles is the Board of Paroles. The parole board works for Sacramento, works for the governor, and that they don't necessarily work for the prison. I was lumping it all in. I wasn't sure if you had any insight on that. I didn't get a chance to look it up.
No, I'm actually learning this information right now because I would have lumped them in there too. I would have thought I knew they were separate, but I really thought they might have worked at the same agency and just were, had a separate department or something. But I actually didn't know that.
Well, I'm not 100% sure. I didn't get a chance to look it up, but I'm gonna follow up on that to figure out if the Board of Paroles, the people that review whether you're gonna get out of prison or not, is actually part of the CDC, or if they're a separate entity, a separate body that works for the governor. That I don't know, but somebody was hitting me up trying to correct me.
We're going to check on that.
And if I was incorrect, I definitely will follow up on that. But let's talk about. Oh man, I don't know if you saw this, but this nurse from Texas was driving her car erratically down La Brea, approaching Slauson at a high rate of speed. They clocking her at either 90 or 100 miles an hour. She barrels into the intersection. She hits this black car that looks like it disintegrates on contact. And at the end of the day, she killed 6 people. Did you see this thing?
No doubt. Yeah, I saw it, man. She actually was a Kaiser nurse, man. And the thing about it was that was a sad, tragic accident. I mean, when you get into an accident, you die yourself and stuff like that. That's horrible. But when you take the life of other people who, were innocently just driving down the street or going to get some gas or going to get some groceries, I mean, that hurts, man. And 6 counts, that's a lot, bro.
Yeah. I'm trying to figure out. There's a debate right now going on online about and the debate is highly influenced by emotions, but people are saying everything from this woman should get life in prison. Mm-hmm. Some people are saying this woman should even get the death penalty. And I'm unaware of anyone that ever got the death penalty for a car-related crime. I don't think a death penalty case has ever been filed on someone for using a car in the commission of a crime. But I don't see this woman getting prosecuted to the point where she's going to end up getting 100 years in prison.
Well, the thing about it, they also right now, her defense team, whether it's public or private, are trying to push for the mental illness. They trying to say she should be in the mental, hospital or mentally evaluated. From a lot of the stuff that I've read, she just may have some mental issues. But at the same time, how is she a nurse? Somebody had to see these issues. When you're a nurse, somebody's supposed to be a supervisor. Somebody should see that if there's a problem, and I mean, people can't cover it up. You don't know what's going on in people, personal lives, but at the same time, how can you miss if she's that, when you're trying to push for mental illness, somebody had to see this. That's for one. For two, I've seen reported on Street TV that she was in 13 previous car accidents.
I definitely reported that, but the source of that is the LA Times, and I'm not 100% sure how accurate that is.
Okay.
Because it's too new.
But you did read, did see that in the time. Okay, well, this is the thing about it. Did she even have a driver license? After 13 accidents, you shouldn't even have a driver license.
But what if those 13 accidents weren't her fault?
Well, damn, that's a hell of this is an unlucky one.
Yeah, I heard 2 of them were she got rear-ended.
Okay.
When you get rear-ended, it's never
it's
your
definitely
fault.
not your fault. But 13, even just reported accident, that's a lot.
I'm starting to think that 13 accidents might not be true. Yeah, it might not be true.
No doubt, but this definitely not a laughing matter, man. People lost their lives, man, and they definitely hit her with 6 counts. And I don't think she'll get the death penalty. But I also don't know if this was something that was premeditated, if this was something that. I don't know all the facts. What do you know about it?
I don't know anything because I was actually in Atlanta when that happened.
Right.
So I was getting a couple of DMs sent to me on Instagram, and I checked out the video. Someone actually sent me an incredible video of the accident in slow motion, and I was like, "Wow, that's pretty deep." And I don't know anything, but I'm gonna go out on a limb right here and say that I believe that her being involved in 13 other accidents is not correct.
Okay.
I think that is something that the LA Times came across and they ran with it.
Yeah, I don't even think that's possible. I mean, I mean, like anything's possible, but like you say, you know, when I seen that, I'm like, hell no, she shouldn't even have a license. But what I did see is she clearly ran that light. You know, the light was red by like, you know, a long way, you know. So what was going through her head or what she was thinking? Because like you said, I'm like you, I've heard numerous of rumors and stuff like that. But at the same time, man, they're going to get to the bottom of it, you know, and with 6 bodies, they're going to do a full investigation on everything about this woman. From where she worked to who she talked to emails. They're going to find out. They're going to get to the bottom of it. And at the end of the day, when they come up with all this evidence and the real come out, then that's when them people going to start thinking about what kind of sentence this lady may end up with.
Hey, she might not even end up going to prison because let's say this. What if there was a malfunction in her accelerator or her brake that prevented her from stopping that car? We don't know if that's an issue. Right. Also, the black car that she collided in, what if there is a malfunction in that car that caused it to go burst into flames, and they didn't want to correct it?
Right.
I mean, there are so many ways that this case is going to get handled. I guarantee you some of the car manufacturers are going to get sued.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We don't know if she was under the influence of alcohol. Some people said that she wasn't. Some people say that she is. It's too early. So we don't even know anything about this case. All we know is what we see in the video, and that shit is crazy. And what's really bizarre is that if you were a pedestrian standing on the corner of Slauson and La Brea, actually specifically standing on the southwest corner, if you were standing on the southwest corner waiting for the light to turn green, you would have got killed.
Man.
Because I saw, and luckily no one was standing there because I watched it in slow motion. But I always tell my kids if you're crossing the street, you know, you hit the button, wait for the light to turn green, but back off the curb. You know, a lot of people be standing on the edge of the curb waiting to cross, and you put yourself in harm's way because you don't know when a car is about to barrel onto the sidewalk.
Well, you know, it's funny, man, and I wasn't going to even mention this, and not to get off topic, but just this Friday night, you know, I came out on my Harley, man, and go down to the DOs for a couple hours. Chief, I'm standing exactly on the corner. You know how you have the wheelchair access? I mean, I'm standing directly on the corner, and I got my back towards the street. We on Central and 79th. So I'm talking to my buddy Keith, and I hear boom. So I'm thinking a car maybe hit a bike or something. And by the time I turned around, Alex, 3 people landed at my feet.
Wow.
They got hit by a van. So if they would have got hit a little harder, I mean, one of them probably would have just bowled right into the back of me. So to go right back, and I hope the lady ended up being all right. The ambulance came and got her. But you're absolutely right about being standing directly on that corner, you know, and it's funny that this just happened Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, it actually happens in this country.
Not funny, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it happens a lot around the country, and it happens a lot here in LA County. A lot of pedestrians die every year from car accidents. And I learned that from my dad. When I was a youngster, I used to stand on the street. My pops used to be like, hey, back up. And really, we learned this from in New York when we wait for the train. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are standing on the platform waiting for the train, but some crazies will push you. There's some mentally ill people. Right when that train's coming, they'll push you right in front of the train. And so my pops used to say, hey, back up off that platform. Mm-hmm. Don't stand anywhere near that train because some crazy fool will push you in front of it. So this is just the way I'm always thinking when I'm walking around. But it made me think, going back to this nurse lady who they claim had 13 accidents, which I don't believe is true at all because it's just unlikely.
Yeah, it sounds far-fetched, yeah.
Look, I'm listening to this guy on Los Angeles radio called Mo Kelly, KFI 640 AM, Mo Kelly, and he's reporting about COVID deaths in Miami, Florida. Mm-hmm. And he said that there were 13 Miami-Dade teachers that died of COVID, like all within a week. 13 people from one place. Mm-hmm. And I said, as soon as I heard that, I said, oh, that can't be true.
Right.
It just can't. It's just my journalistic instincts just completely went into full mode and said, untrue. So I tweeted him and I said, did you verify this story? And he said, well, it's on this platform and on that platform.
Right.
Hey, the LA Times is saying this woman had 13 accidents.
That don't mean it's,
it doesn't mean anything. Yeah. So what I did, because when this guy started to defend himself, I'm talking about Mo Kelly, he started to defend himself and he started to disparage me. He went on the air and started to say some of these idiots don't even understand what COVID is and how dangerous COVID is. And he was talking about me.
Right.
And I completely understand how dangerous COVID is at that time. But there's no way that 13, and here's the headline. I have it right here. 13 Miami-Dade school staffers have died from COVID-19 since the start of the year. And this is a September 8th article. So basically, like in a week, it turned out not to be true.
Right.
It turned out not to be true at all. I asked him to name the people. What are the dates? No one could do it. I found like maybe 2 or 3 people died. So here's a headline. If you go online and you search this, you will see this headline being reported by very reputable news outlets. But 13 Miami-Dade school staffers did not die in a 1 week period. So it makes me think about this nurse. What's your chances of that she really has had 13 car accidents?
You know what? That's why I turned to you. You know what I mean? And because it just, like 13, it's almost impossible. You know, so I didn't believe it either. That's why I even spoke on it. But maybe you knew something a little more than me. Maybe it could just be some crazy thing that happened to this one person. But at the end of the day, yeah, it's hard for me to just believe.
Yeah, I was just reporting what the LA Times is reporting, and I'm trying to think like if you got into 2, 3, 4 accidents, at some point your driver's license is going to get suspended and revoked.
No doubt.
Now, there is a possibility that she's, as a traveling nurse, she drives in different states, and each state doesn't know about the other state's driving record.
Right. Well, you know, maybe like you say, maybe LA Times put an extra one on it. You know, maybe, you know, something like that. You know, it could have just been an error, but we do try to trust the LA Times because they've been these pretty credible, news outlet for years. So if I read it in the LA Times or if I read it in the New York Post or anything like that, I will repeat it as well based on I expect these outlets, as large as they are, to be reporting the facts, but we don't always get it right.
Nah, man. I find mistakes in the LA Times all the time because I actually look at a lot of old newspapers. I go into the archives and I look up old cases, and I'm reading about cases that we already know what the case is now.
Right.
But the stuff that they wrote was like, oh, they were off on that one, or they were wrong on that one. So actually, a good exercise for those who want to see how many mistakes the newspaper does make. Pick a story that you know a whole lot about that was covered in the media in the past, and go read the early articles that they published, and you'll see all the mistakes,
the discrepancies.
Yeah, a whole lot of discrepancies, man. But any last thoughts on this nurse? I want to ask what should happen to her, but I really don't know because I don't know what really happened. Right. I don't know if her car malfunctioned. I don't know if she was under the influence. I don't know if she's bipolar. I don't know anything at this point, really.
Well, like you say, we don't have all the facts, but if indeed, because just rumors. I heard she had got into it with her boyfriend. I heard all these things. So if any of those factors play a part, man, then she did wrong.
Now I also heard that she might be bipolar.
Right, but do bipolar stop you from driving? I mean, you correctly.
Well,
you know what I mean?
There's people online. I was in a clubhouse room yesterday, and they were talking about if you're bipolar, you shouldn't be able to drive.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Okay, I'm thinking bipolar was just, different personalities and attitudes and stuff like that. I don't know the full, definition of bipolar, but I've never knew nobody to bipolar that couldn't drive decently or had problems behind the wheel.
Yeah, I don't think that you can control bipolar people from driving. My father was bipolar.
Okay.
He was diagnosed bipolar, but he had no problem driving. He's a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He did suffer from depression, but he lived a normal life. It wasn't like he was going to go out and go on a rampage.
Right.
But I believe I have a sibling. I'm not sure. I don't want to put her name out there. I got multiple siblings, but I got one sibling I believe is bipolar. Not 100% sure.
Right.
But my sibling is very normal and drives and goes to work. So I think the idea of being bipolar is now going to get stigmatized if it's true that this girl is bipolar.
Right. They will do that because that's what they're going to do it. And but on the flip side, with 6 bodies, it's going to be a thorough investigation because a lot of people from those families going to have different attorneys. Different attorneys going to be searching for anything they can, especially when it comes to the civil side of it at the end. Kids were lost. So it was definitely a tragic thing, man, and she should be held accountable for it. no matter what happened. You know, she needs to be held accountable for it in some capacity, you know.
Definitely, she's she was actually given a bail. Her bail was $9 million, but then when she went to arraignment the other day, the judge revoked her bail.
They revoked the $9 million, like somebody was just gonna pull up. You know what I mean? I got 9 for her. You know.
And we're talking about this lady, and we haven't even said her name. Her name's Nicole Linton. She's 37 years old, and it looks like she's going to be spending at least the next couple decades in prison.
Yeah, unfortunately, man. You know, but like I say, we gonna see what's going on. Everything from the mental health to just, you know, any kind of situation she may have had before the accident. Was she texting? Was she mad? You know, they gonna get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while before we find the truth. I heard that rumor about the boyfriend thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. Like, she's mad at your boyfriend, so I'm gonna just drive this car at and where she drove it, she was actually coming down the hill. Mm-hmm. If you ever drive south on La Brea, right, you're coming down a steep hill. So you're already, without even pressing the gas, your car is flying down that hill.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, some people could believe that suicide was a factor. You know, I mean, it's different people. You know, everybody going to have a different, you know, take on it. But at the end of the day, like I say, until we get some more evidence on it, you know, I can't really give a, you know, full judgment on it.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait on that and get some more information. NBA or WNBA player Brittney Griner, who's been sitting in a Russian jail for the better part of this year, was found guilty of possessing, what is it she was possessing? Some sort of marijuana?
Cannabis. I believe she had a pen, you know, those marijuana pens.
Yeah.
They smoking now.
What's your whole take on that? We haven't spoken on it, so this is our first time talking about Brittney Griner. What's your whole take on that?
My take is, you know, I was a Brittney Griner fan when I used to watch the NBA. You know, I used to champion the NBA. Love to see him play and all those sort of things. But at the end of the day, Alex, I mean, when you're going overseas, you know, you got to be on your P's and Q's. You can't go to Russia and China and these states and be slipping. That's just you know, because at the end of the day, slipping count, Alex. You know what I mean? And when you get caught slipping, they're going to charge your ass. So she's saying that she forgot it in her bag. Me personally, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
But 9.5-year sentence is way far, I mean, ridiculous. I've seen articles where people got caught with a little bit more and received less than half of the sentence that she got. But I also believe that she got that 9.5 years because the U.S. put their interest in it real quick. So I'm believing they trying to use it as a bargaining chip to maybe bring some of their people home. So they gave her a whole bunch of time and they said, okay, we want somebody over there that got 10, 12 years to, you know, but the U.S. showed their interest real quick. So I believe that's the reason why she got so much time.
Well, believe it or not, we got about 30 or 40,000 Americans in American prisons that are serving time for the same thing.
Right.
You know, they're for marijuana.
No doubt.
You know, I think, isn't that crazy? We got 30,000 inmates right now for marijuana offenses, and ain't nobody advocating for them to get out.
No doubt. But I'm gonna be totally honest with you. You know, if you get caught with what she get caught with over here, you might get a ticket. I don't even see them taking you to jail. Just to be honest with you on that part. You know, we say that it is 30, 40,000 inmates in here for marijuana. I don't believe any of them in there for, you know, 0.7 grams, to be honest with you. I do have to say that part, you know.
Yeah.
But I totally understand what you're saying, because on the flip side, if me and you were over there in prison with the same 0.7 grams and we have got 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, they won't be advocating for our ass. I can't say that.
That's for sure. But her being an NBA player, she's actually a center. She's like 7 feet tall, something crazy like that. And for the world to be giving her all this attention, there is a good chance that she might get out at some point. But I heard from one article I read, the United States is going to have to give something up in terms of a Russian prisoner in order to get her out of jail.
No doubt, but then that's what you come to say, that's kind of a slap in the face to regular American citizens, because it's basically saying that, you know, superstars or athletes or movie stars, you know, are better than the rest of us, you know. So because if she wasn't a WNBA star, you wouldn't hear none of this, and the U.S. wouldn't give a damn about how much time she got over there. She had to do it.
And her medical marijuana prescription, which is she's claiming she has, is not valid in Russia.
No doubt. You know
can't
what I
take
mean?
it.
That's my point. You know, and for people that's listening out there to travel abroad, you know, stop playing with these people. Stop trying to go to these other countries. If you going to New York or you going to Chicago, hey, that's something different. You know, they try your hand. You know what I mean? But when you start traveling internationally outside of these places to Russia and China and places like that, come on, man. You should know that if they catch you, they're going to bust your head open. Now, on the flip side, I'm wondering, had she done this before and successfully done it other times is what made her feel comfortable, you know, if she really didn't know that it was, I mean, you know, if she did know that it was in there, you know.
She probably has successfully done it. Like I've successfully have gotten a 6-ounce tube of toothpaste through the airport once or twice before.
No doubt.
But sometimes
You know
they
what I
catch you
mean?
and say, "Hey, that's too many ounces."
Exactly.
You know?
So, you know, I'm just wondering, but on the flip side, the sentence is just way excessive, man.
It is, but that's what they do in that country. Look, I was in Amsterdam once, and they have all kind of drugs that are legal. You can go to a whole section there. It's called the red light district. Smoke, get high. I think they even give it to you in restaurants. I didn't, you know, go all the way with it, but I remember I was catching a flight from Amsterdam to London, and we got the lecture saying, "Hey, just because drugs are legal here, it doesn't mean they're legal in London. So don't even think that you can take drugs from here." And you know, Amsterdam and London are not far apart, so you would think it's like it's closest. It's like going. It's probably shorter between going from L.A. to Vegas, but you're in a whole nother country. You're on a whole different rules. And I remember when I was on that flight to London, there were some Americans that brought some drugs, and when we landed in Heathrow Airport, they were taken into custody. And I'm sure that they got the same lecture that I heard. And, you know, and there's no way on God's green earth I'm going to try to smuggle some drugs from Amsterdam to London. But if you do that, you're going to have to pay the prices.
No doubt. It's not even just in those places. I mean, when you coming in on a cruise from even Mexico, when you coming in on a cruise, before you get back, what they do is they put the trash cans out there. They make these announcements clear. We don't care if y'all got drugs. You know what I mean? You know, we've been partying in international waters. We don't care about that. Don't try to get off this ship with those drugs. You know what I mean? And they put baskets out there. Look, you got any leftover drugs? Just throw it in the basket. You know what I mean? Or you know, just flush it down the toilet. Do what you're gonna do, but don't bring it off the ship. And I'll be damned, man, if in 2004 I'm coming off a cruise and I'm good. You know what I mean? I smoked my little weed already. You know, matter of fact, left the rest because I believed them. You know what I mean? So I'm coming off the cruise, and it seemed like they randomly picked people to pull over for a minute. So they pulled me over and they detained me. So I didn't understand what the situation was. So I've seen people go back there and 15 minutes they release them. You know what I mean? So I said, maybe they want to search me or something. They detained me, Alex, and they 30 minutes went by, hour went by, 3 or 4 hours went by, and I'm like, hell, hold on, what's going on, man? They, you know, one officer said, man, I don't know, and they detained me for 6 hours before they let me go.
That's crazy.
It took me until the feds picked me up to find out that what happened was I had a sealed indictment. So when I came back into the U.S., they had to get in touch with the feds to see if they wanted them to detain me. And it took them 6 hours. And by the time they got it, the feds said, no, let him go. We got it. Let him go. And that's what they ended up detaining me for. But while I was sitting in there, I seen white people, Asians, trying to bring their drugs back, and they was getting cracked.
So there were a lot of other offenders.
A lot of other offenders, man. And, you know, like I said, mine wasn't for that. But I seen how the process worked. People trying to sneak their drug bags, man, you get cracked. Now you got a whole drug case federally, you know, because you trying to bring back an 8-ball, you know what I mean, to sniff when you get home, you know, and something that might have cost you a couple $100, now it's finna cost you a record and a few thousand. So.
But you guys were actually warned. Everyone said, "Hey, throw it out if you got it.
If you got it, man. We not the police. We just don't take it through customs. You know what I mean? So when you come in through Miami or you come in through LA, when you get to that customs, man, they serious, man.
Yeah, I've never actually taken a cruise.
Oh, okay. I was going to invite you on one. I'm going on another one end of the month.
So that cruise must have been one of the last fun things you did, because you said that was 2004.
Right. I had a ball. Hey, dog, I had a ball. It was a Super Bowl cruise. And, oh, man, we had a ball.
Because if I remember correctly, did you get popped in May of 2004?
No, I got correct in November.
Oh, November, near the end. Okay.
Yeah, but they had already had their hooks in me, you know. So when you come back in the country, it was in the computer that this dude is, you know, this a wanted dude. And they never told me what happened until when I got my discovery and was going through my shit. That's why they detained me at the cruise lines in
so they
Long Beach.
They detained you on a case you hadn't even been indicted
I hadn't
yet.
even been indicted yet. Didn't have no idea what was going on. But dude kept saying, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
He like, man, what's your social? And then he was asking me questions like, you on parole? You on probation? You on? He's like, I'm like, nah. They go back and check some more. He said, man, I'm trying to figure it out. He didn't, you know, they were trying to see what was going on, but they, at the end of the day, they knew what was up. They had to get in touch with them feds to say.
So they had your name on a list then?
They had my name on the list, man.
Wow.
Yeah, and I tripped off that, you know, and I even laughed about it while I was in jail. Like, damn, they knew all this time. And when my name hit that computer coming back into the country, hey, they say, man, hold, you know, the customs held me. And they had to wait till they got in touch with the FBI, and the FBI said, no, let him go. We got it.
Damn, that's crazy. Every time we talk about your case, it's always some new shit.
Oh, yeah, man, a lot of shit was going on, man.
Yeah, so coming back, this was a cruise to Mexico?
Yeah, this was a cruise to Mexico.
So coming back from the cruise to Mexico, the U.S. Customs, I guess there was a red flag on your name.
No doubt it popped right up, because as soon as I come back through the lines and as soon as I walked out of checkout, they pulled up on me deep. Excuse me, sir, this way, you know. And man, my car was left out there. By the time they let me go, the cruise ship was reboarding for another cruise to go out. I had to call my people, you know, and but at the same time, you know, I just shook my head like, damn, what was that about? You know.
And then after you went home and thought about it, did you just kind of just forget about it? Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they thought I was a different Frank Thornton, or
what? You know
what?
what? I could never put it together. You know, and even the homies was like, what was that about, homie? I was like, I don't know. You know, I couldn't put nothing together, you know. But I did see people coming in there getting detained for trying to bring them drugs back. And you done caught yourself a whole Fed case, you know, bringing drugs from internationally, you know, when you could have just threw that shit in the trash can, man, and bought some more when you got there. It's plenty in California, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember I was in Hawaii, and I ended up buying some edibles. And actually, I went to go buy some edibles, but this dude who was a fan of the website and the platform said, "Oh man, I got a spot for you." So he takes me, he drives me all around the island. I'm like, man, we're driving for like 30 minutes. And he takes me to the spot, and we're in this garage, a bunch of Hawaiian dudes. I don't know any of these people.
Right.
But he introduced me to everyone, and he says that, yeah, he wants to get some edibles. So this dude opens up a freezer in the garage, and it's just full of edibles. So he pulls one out, and he gives it to me, and I'm like, how much I owe you? He was like, oh, no, it's on the house. But he gave me such a huge amount of these edibles. When it was time to come back, I was like, man, I'm going to take these to L.A.
Right.
I was a little nervous, though.
Yeah,
I was like, damn, should I do it or not? So I'm in the bathroom at the airport. So I broke a part of it off because it was so big and threw it in the trash and saved some of it. And it got through.
Yeah, you can make it sometime. Yeah.
But do you think that was a risk, or that's not that bad? Because Hawaii is America. It's not a foreign country.
That's still the U.S., you know what I mean? And it's not that big, man. And, you know, at the same time, like you say, back then, you know, it's crazy how they check you when you go through the airport now. You know, I kind of think that, man, I see how people was getting shit through LAX and all these airports back in the day, because it was they just didn't have the technology that they got now. You know what I mean? And, you know, now they got a scanner that you stand in. It spins around your whole body, man, to tell you everything. They tell me, man, you got a broke leg, you got a pins in your leg. You know, they know. Back then, they just did.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a great segue, because we now know that the reason why what was the shipping company that you were on? Was it Carnival?
Carnival, yeah, it was a Carnival cruise.
Okay,
yeah.
so we now know why the U.S. Customs and Border Enforcement held you up for what, 5 hours?
6
6
man,
hours?
I counted them, man. It was long.
Hey, when they held you up, did they have you just chilling, or did they cuff you, or what?
Nah, they had me in the cell, like just chilling. You know, the door was open. They kept coming back. You know, agents kept coming back saying, "Dude, we trying to get you out of here."
Yeah.
You know, they was polite and all that. I believe it was over some of their heads.
Yeah.
They kept coming back, man. What's your social number, man? You got a junior on your name, man. You know, and they was trying to, like, for a minute, I really believe they was trying to figure it out.
No, they probably didn't have all the information on it, because U.S. Customs and Border, they're kind of at the bottom of the Fed agencies. You know, it's the CIA and the FBI.
Right.
They're the top dogs, and all the other alphabet organizations are below them. So they probably weren't really privy to everything that was going on, and then they finally got a call saying, "Hey, yeah, he's under investigation, but he's currently not indicted. You can let him go." But why would it take 6 hours to get that call?
Man, it took them 6, man. You know, and like I say, well, I had talked about it. Remember the cruise we went on? Yeah, they had to tell my ass 6 hours. You know, and because even the homies like, "What you had?" You know what I mean? I'm dude, I ain't had nothing. You know, and like I say, we left it alone, you know.
Well, unfortunately, we got to talk about something that I actually agreed not to talk about this anymore. And this is a perfect segue from, you know, you being held by the Border Patrol because James McDonald, a.k.a. Mob James, was working as a federal informant, and he got you caught up into a drug case.
No doubt.
And I agreed. Look, a lot of people don't know this, but we're going to talk about it. Mob James and myself had a phone call. We had a phone call because he did a stupid video where he said if there was a whole bunch of white boys stomping me out, he would say, "Kill Alex."
Yeah.
I mean, he's got that much hatred for me, but he don't have the hatred for FG. He don't have the hatred for WAC 100, but he's got the hatred for the journalist who did the interview. So I took that little clip that he put about wishing death upon me, and I put it on my Facebook just so everyone could see this is where he's at with it. This is the level of hate that he has for me doing an interview with you. And I got a call from him. Reggie Wright Jr. called me up and said, "Hey, Mob James wants to holler at you. Can I tap him in?" I said, "Sure, tap him in on the line." So he tapped him in, and then basically he was calling to apologize for wishing death on me. He said he was denying that what he said was wishing death. I said, it's your words, James. Everyone could see it. My family is watching this shit you said.
Right.
So he apologized for wishing death on me. He apologized to my wife. My wife was sitting right there when I took the call. And then we also agreed, and this was what Reggie Wright said, "Hey, can we agree to stop talking about it?" And I said, "Yeah, we could agree to stop talking about it. You know, I won't talk about that he's an informant anymore. I can leave it alone." But then he pops up and he's talking about it again, F.
No doubt, but man, we got to point that finger at Vlad too, man. You know what I mean? We can't give him a pass, you know, because Vlad know exactly what the hell is going on, and you want a steady coming here, you know. And James should have went on there and said, "Listen, man, I don't want to talk about that. I don't know how everybody do their interviews and stuff like that. If it's just wide open, you can ask me whatever, you know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, he should have notified Vlad that, look, man, I want to stay away from that topic, you know." And Vlad went in and mentioned my name and talked shit about you. So we got to get on his helmet too, you know what I mean? And I don't think it was professional at all. And at the end of the day, you know, James shouldn't even spoke on it again.
Now, let me play a little clip from that. This is part 2 of the Mob James interview on VladTV. Let me cue this up. Let's see if I can get this to play so people could know exactly what the heck we're talking about. And if I can't get it to play, so be it. Let me see. All right, we're gonna have to come back to it. But what this guy Vlad said on this interview, and this is the second time he said it. He says that I've been talking down on him. I've been talking foul on his name, and I've been saying negative things about him. And I guess you could say some of the things are negative. They're just critiques.
Right.
And he has this belief that I got some hatred towards him. But I'm gonna break this down. There are 3 things. There are 3 issues that I have with Vlad. I have an issue with him speaking on the Honorable Minister Farrakhan falsely and then not apologizing for it. I have a problem with him speaking on reparations for Black Americans, and in his world, reparations comes in the form of free education when reparations should be cash They were cash for the Japanese. They were cash for the Jews.
Right.
During the Holocaust, it was cash for Native Americans. But for black folks, he's saying they should get free education when most people don't need or want a free education. So I had an issue with that. And then I had an issue with him paying for interviews because that is not part of the journalistic protocol. I know with YouTube and social media, people aren't going to abide and respect the rules of journalism. But this is the reason why you have this interview with Mob James, because he paid Mob James for this interview, because I actually was the middle person between the first interview that Vlad paid Mob James for. He paid him $1,000 for the second interview he did. So since then, he's been getting paid each one. So when you pay someone for an interview, you're obligated now to answer all his questions.
Gotcha.
What Mob James should have did was say, hey, I don't want to talk about that topic. Let's move to the next one. But he can't do that when you're getting paid. When you're getting paid, you better answer them. And we've already agreed we're going to stop talking about this. And now you got this guy, Vlad, slandering and libeling my name, saying things that are 100% untrue. Nobody faked any paperwork. What's your response to all that, F?
You know what? No, I feel exactly how you feel. You know what I mean? Vlad was out of line. You know, he know the paperwork real, though. He know exactly what's going on. Vlad got, you know, lawyers and attorneys and people that he can really go get the check. And if he was doing any kind of journalism professionally, he would have had his people check. And he wouldn't have asked him if. He would have asked him, when you did this, blah, 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 how did you feel? Or when you did this, you know, not if. You know what I mean? And not insinuated that it was some fake paperwork, you know, when he knows damn well that this situation is real and true.
No doubt about it. So I don't know what my next move is going to be, but I can tell you this. It's not over with at this point. And let me also add this in. When I had this conversation with Mob James, this was a private conversation between me, him, and Reggie Wright Jr. I had no plans on ever speaking again on the issue like we're talking about it now. And I really had no plans on even discussing or revealing our private conversation. But I'll say it right now. In that conversation, he told me he was disappointed that I would do an interview with you because him and I were friends. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, you're right, we were friends. But when I learned that you were an FBI informant, James,
right,
I can't rock with that. And you are a snitch in the worst way. You have a snitch that, let's say you have a crimey and you guys get caught and then you tell on the other one. That's a snitch. This was, you went out of your way to snitch.
No motherfucking doubt.
You and FG were not crimies.
No.
You and FG wasn't rocking together. You and FG wasn't really doing anything together. You set this man up. You entrapped him into a cocaine transaction that he would have never done if it wasn't for a favor for Droshan Owens. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're 100% right. You know, and to be honest with you, man, you know, what he need to do, homie, for one, you know, Vlad need to apologize to you for one, because he know he don't want to run that fade with you. Because I definitely, hey, Vlad, I know you don't want to run that fade with him. But on the real, what Mob James need to do is call Alex Alonso, come on this show, do an interview, and just lay it all on the line on why he did what he did. You know, tell the truth to the world. You know, let the kids know, man, that this the type of shit happen to you. Friends tell on friends. People go bad. You know what I mean? And there's consequences to that. You know. So at the end of the day, man, he could turn it into something different, but to keep, you know, denying it and, you know, talking about fake paperwork and FG lying, don't nobody believe that, man. Just come, just say what you did, man, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's up to him. But one more thing I'll add that this conversation that we talked about, I told him, look, I said, I did the interview. It's out there. The paperwork is out there. And I said, James, I got more paperwork on you.
Right.
I said, I got more information on you, but I will agree to leave it alone. And we just, you know, if I even said, if you want to deny it on the internet, that's fine. You could deny it. But,
right.
You know, amongst a conversation between you, me, and Reggie Wright, you know, we ain't going there. Right. And I said, I dare you to deny it with me on this conversation, because I spoke to the lawyers. I know who the prosecutor is.
No doubt.
I got more paperwork. There are more transcripts. There are more cases. So if you want to go there, James, we can go there. But he was quiet.
Of course.
He was quiet like a motherfucking mouse.
No doubt.
So I am shocked that he decided to go do this interview and let Vlad lie about paperwork being fake.
No doubt, man. And that's where the disrespect came in. Because as you see, Alex, I don't talk about the shit. You know what I mean? I don't go on my channel, ranting and raving or even bringing this dude's name up. You know what I mean? The shit is what it is and it was what it was. But at the same time, for, y'all to keep bringing this shit up and bringing this shit up, like you say, it's more. So at the end of the day, man, leave this shit alone. And tell Vlad to leave this shit alone. You know what I mean? And stop taking interviews where this question is going to be asked to you. If you're not willing to keep, for consequences of other information coming out, leave this shit alone, man.
Yeah, and I even called Vlad up. I called Vlad up. Dude blocked me. He ain't taking my call. I sent him a text. And he got message from other people that he does interviews with.
Right.
I hit them up because I know they talk.
Exactly.
I said, hey, tell Vlad to call me. He said, all right, I'm on it right now. I did that for like 2 or 3 people.
Right.
No call back from Vlad.
Right.
So I'm starting to feel like this dude wants to slander me. And I don't know why. He's got the large platform.
Yeah, he do got a large platform, but at the end of the day, Alex, I'm talking about real gonna recognize real, no matter how big his platform is. For anybody that follow or know Alex Alonso on Street TV, they know what you about, dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have a flawless track record when it comes to any work or any stuff I've ever put on the internet or posted that goes back to the 1990s. This goes back to before some of these people were even born that are checking this out right now. I have consulted on over 600 criminal court cases. I have testified in over 100 and something cases. I have been flown out throughout this country from every level of court, from civil, criminal, military court. I've been flown to military bases because they got trials too.
Right, no doubt.
And my name is very good in all these spaces. And I think this is the first time in the history of my career that someone is saying that I'm lying.
Right. No, you're 100% right. But let me reiterate this, though. You've spoken. I'm sure he's heard you and he's going to hear you. And at the end of the day, I would kick back, and I believe he won't do it again. I honestly.
You talking about Mob James or Vlad?
About Vlad. I believe he won't try you again, bro. You spoken, and I believe he won't go there with you. That's my opinion.
Well, he already went there, and that's enough for me. And because James wants to co-sign what Vlad did, I'm considering putting out some more information on James McDonald, a.k.a. Mob James, who was an FBI informant between the years of, I believe, 1999 to 2004. He had a beautiful 5-year run there with the feds. He was getting paid money. He was getting paid money in the 4 figures, meaning like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, 2,000. And he told on multiple people. And I'm going to say this, too. Mob Pyrus, y'all too quiet out there. The Mob Pyrus is too quiet out there. You letting this dude run all over the internet, talk all this shit, and start defaming people. And I know some of you Mob Pyrus. I got a lot of respect for Mob Pyru, but y'all motherfuckers is too quiet.
Well, one thing about it though, Alex, it's a delicate situation when you get to talking about, the streets. And I believe he was put in a situation, like you say, by Vlad, man. He kind of had to answer something a little bit, like you say, once he took the money, But at the end of the day, I'm sure you sent a clear message to knock that shit off. You know what I mean?
Well, I thought that the conversation that I had with Reggie Wright and Mob James back in June, this was a conversation we had in June. Mm-hmm. I thought the message was clear there.
No doubt. And
even Reggie said, hey,
stall him out.
Yeah, stall him out.
Yeah.
And here's another thing. Reggie even said in this phone conversation, can it come to a point where you'll forgive James? And when you start talking like that, you're basically saying it's true.
Right.
Yeah. Forgive him for what?
Right.
Forgive him for
no
being
doubt.
an informant.
Right.
And I said, well, it's not me to forgive.
No doubt.
You know, it's for FG to forgive and for his kids to forgive and his wife to forgive and all the lives that he's fucked over to forgive. It ain't for me to forgive. I'm just a journalist. You know, I could sit in the room with James, and in this conversation, James was saying, you know, I can't fuck with you no more, Alex. I can't even be in the same room with you. I'm like, okay, if that's how you feel about me, you know, but you don't have an issue with me. I'm not the enemy. If you have an enemy, it would be either Whack 100 who marked your ass out for a whole hour on Bomb First.
No motherfucking doubt.
Or NFG who put the paperwork out there. And really, let's throw in homeboy from Campanella Park, Peru, because he's with the smoke too.
No bullshit.
Kenzo is the one that got the ball rolling on this whole thing. So Vlad, if you're trying to slander me, you're slandering Kenzo from Campanella Park, some real Pirus. You're slandering FG from Cross Atlantic Piru, and you're slandering anybody else who's been speaking on this with integrity and truth and honesty.
Hey. Well spoken, well said, you know what I mean? I'm sure he gonna reach out to you now, you know, if not, and when you holler at him, hey, let him know, stop playing with you, man.
All right, man. Any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Nah, man, I just want to speak on, like I say, we're gonna keep our eye on the car crash over there in Los Angeles, man. Like I say, I send my condolences to those people that lost their families and their kids and wives and stuff in that accident. You know, and keep my eye on what level of intellect she had, if she had any mental disorders. And we're gonna keep on that, Alex, and see how that turn out.
And are we saying free Brittney Griner, or she's got to sleep in the bed she made?
Well, you know what? Nah, man, knock some of that time off at least.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know, knock 8 of them years off, man. Stop. You know what I mean? I mean, that's even too much. But I'm just saying, don't do it like that, you know.
What do you think the 40,000 people who are serving time in prison right now for marijuana offenses? I don't know the answer to this, but what do you think is the normal sentence for a marijuana offender?
Well, you know, I've seen some homies in there had 20 years for marijuana. You know, now I don't know how much they had and all those sorts of things, but at the same time, you know, the problem with this is marijuana is out here and legal in so many ways. I know the feds still say it's illegal, but to the state, it's still illegal. So the state can let some of these dudes out with no problem, you know what I mean, and send them home, you know, and that's what, you know, they should be working on as well. You know, how can you say one thing about one person and then don't help the next? I mean, I've seen them do it before, but at the end of the day, man, you got so many people that sit in these jails for marijuana because maybe it was a third offense or maybe it was you know, because of their record. Yeah. Let these people out, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess Brittney Griner should give her a 1-year sentence. She's already been in there since February 17th, but, you know, this is Putin. This is Putin's government. This is Putin's justice system. And I don't think they believe in 1-year sentences for marijuana.
No doubt, but at the same time, what she also caught up in is politics, you know, and this shit happens in the street as well. You know, sometimes politics plays a role on why certain things happen, you know, and so hopefully, you know, the politics can get pushed to the side and they can at least get her home, man, you know, because what she's in there for, I believe, is minute. But at the same time, I can't say it's minute for their country. I can only say it's minute here.
Yeah, definitely. They're going to have to trade a Russian prisoner for her if she's going to get out anytime soon. So I guess we could just say free Brittney Griner, man, and hope she can get back to her craft of playing basketball. And we'll be on top of this Nicole Linton case, the woman that crashed into all those people on Slauson and La Brea. And that wraps up this another episode. Where can people catch you at, F?
They can catch me on Instagram at FGeneral1. You can catch me on YouTube at FGeneral Unleashed. I mean FG Unleashed, going in on Vlad. And yeah, that's where you can get me at.
All right, I'm at Alex Alonso 101, all social media platforms. That's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm about to drop some more content on Street TV. I've been out of town, so it's been a little bit slow. And I want to thank everyone for tapping in on another episode of Streets and Scholars.